Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the beautiful world you are. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa with me, Chantelle, your hostess with the mostest awesome guests and viewers. As again, today dictates, and yes, I know I'm looking very glitzy and shiny today. The sun is shining right on me. It's that time in the morning. So, no, I'm not changing colors. It's the sun. In case I get some weird questions. Not impossible on this channel, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, wow. I have with me again the gorgeous Rachel Vaughan. I know we've kind of missed each other but the last few months, but we're back in action having wonderful conversations again. And today we're going to talk about, let me just make sure I get this right, heterochromia, which is a condition of the iris of the eye. Um, and yeah, according to what the Hindus are talking about, and Rachel's absolutely going to go into more detail with that, it's the coloring of the eye and how that connects to your psychic abilities and your ability to see beyond the realms. Super, super fascinating. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about ley lines and cryptids in Australia. Yay. Rachel, how are you? And welcome. It's so good to see you again.
Well, thank you for having me back, Darlin. And yes, emails are an issue. Lovely to be here. Lovely to see you again. And yes, central heterochromia is a fascinating topic. So it's really interesting. I learnt this from my cousin Doug McIntyre. And as I mentioned before, he's on Twitter, allegedly live.com. And he's obviously got a website as well. Brilliant researcher, absolutely fantastic researcher. So Doug had a very similar background to me. So for those who don't know me, there's an SRA, MK Ultra background. My accent belies the fact that I'm in Australia. I grew up in South Australia. Doug grew up in New South Wales, and our fathers were very, very similar in many, many, many ways. And just so happens we both got, my maiden name's McIntyre. He's a McIntyre. He's done the genealogy, and we are actually, distant cousins. I love that man dearly. He taught me about heterochromia. So I have heterochromia. I have what's called central heterochromia. So this is the color of the iris. And central heterochromia can either be genetic. It's really interesting. It can be one of two things. It can be genetic or it can actually be trauma related. Now, if you go on the internet and you study it, it'll say that it's genetic. But the MK Ultra scientists were studying this in the Second World War, and obviously, through paperclip and matchbox, where they went to Australia, the Nazi scientists just got deposited around the world, and they continue to do their studies. So with heterochromia, which is a eye coloration, you've got central heterochromia, where there's a different color around the pupil, bless you, darling, than around the rest of the iris. You've got partial or segmented heterochromia. So you might get a little flash of brown or blue or some other color in the iris that's in a segment, or in part of it, like a third of it might be a different color in one eye.
Right.
You also get full heterochromia, where a person might have one green eye and one blue eye, or one brown eye and one hazel eye, perhaps. So you can actually get, it's quite freaky. You can get someone with central and full heterochromia as well. So in the Hindu religion, people with different colored eyes, and then the number of different colors in the iris is also, like, the more colors you have, the more likely you are to have some of these characteristics in the Hindu belief system. So they believe that people with heterochromia could convene with God, could see the future, uh, were really highly psychic, were telepaths, were telekinetic. So there's a lot that's sort of around that. Now, obviously, the Nazis were absolutely obsessed with the occult. They could see many gypsies. So this eye colors, it's very unusual in brown-eyed people, Asian people. So it's mostly in your Caucasian races, but it's really quite prevalent in the Romani population and in the Celtic population. So according to, when you look it up on the internet, they don't talk about the uh, trauma aspect. They talk more about the genetic aspect. So to have central heterochromia, for instance, where you have a different color around the eye, pupil than the rest of the iris. So you might have brown around the pupil and green around the rest of the iris, and green-eyed central heterochromics are like are likened to be more psychic than others. That eye coloration is 1% of 1% of the world's population. It's a very small number. Boys with central heterochromia are 30% of that 1% of 1%. So it's more common in females, but still extremely rare. And it's 1 in 200 Caucasians basically have this. What's really interesting is that I have a lot of people with this eye coloration who come into my psychic development course. They have a lot of these skills. They also are more adept at seeing ley lines, which is fascinating. So there's something in this. So ley lines are magnetic frequencies. So it's interesting that you married these two topics today, because they go very much hand in hand, and I'm not surprised that you would do that.
Mhm.
Ley lines are visible. People don't seem to realize it. I'm doing my best to teach people that. So when you're standing within a ley line in nature, you will see these perfect circles, like tunnels through the landscape. And that perfect circle with perspective will be replicated along a walkway that you're going through. Plants and trees avoid growing within ley lines, I think out of respect. I'm sort of halfway between either that they don't like the frequency, or that it's out of respect because these are the Earth's meridians. I think it's probably more out of respect. They're very conscious and they're thinking.
Right.
But yeah, people with the heterochromic vision see them more easily. I've also noticed people with heterochromia, particularly central heterochromia, because that's the one I see the most, are usually, now I've got to get this right, tetrachromats. So you can have trichromatic vision, or sorry, I'll start dichromatic, trichromatic, or tetrachromatic vision. So there is things that you can look at with all these different colors, and the number of colors that you see on this particular tile that I use in my course. If you see, say, 20 odd in this 40 odd color band width, you're a dichromat. If you see more than that, trichromat. And if you see the most colors, you're a tetrachromat. So tetrachromats they see as well as a bee. They see all these different frequencies, aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum that other people can't see. And that goes hand in hand also with heterochromia, which is just so fascinating and interesting. What
It
is
is. No, sorry,
what is
carry on.
also Well, what is also really interesting, so again, if you look online, they'll talk about this being genetic. There is this absolute obsession in Hollywood with people with heterochromia, either full, partial, segmented. In fact, the Marvel series, if you look at the actors and actresses who play the Marvel parts, almost all of them have got either full, central, or partial heterochromia, because they know
Wow.
that these people have these abilities. So yeah,
So
super
we're
human.
not, are you actually saying with that that the actors and the actresses, and I'm sorry, I don't know who they are because I don't really watch these
Yeah,
things, and I probably should, just to inform myself so I
yeah,
don't look like a bit of a dumbass when I talk about it. But are you saying that the actors themselves actually do have the superpower abilities of their character?
yes.
Do
Well, whether
you?
or not they have the superpower abilities, I'm not 100% sure, but in the people in the know in these secret societies know about heterochromia. And the reason I know that, so many people come to me and say, this Freemason walked up to me one day, looked in my eyes, and asked me to join. And I never understood why until I saw one of your interviews and you talked about how they all know. So
Wow.
it's as plain as the eyes on your face. If you've got these abilities, they know, they can see it. Our children that are constantly being photographed, you send your child off to have their school photos done. They're always terrible photographs. They're expensive. Why do we do it? Government gets to see what your child's eyes look like. They know who
Wow.
they can then stick in their gifts and talents programs. So with the Hollywood types, so Mila Kunis, Scarlett Johansson, Ray Fiennes, uh, Henry Cavill, the guy who plays Magneto, I can never think of his name. There's so many of them. In the prevalence in Hollywood of people with this eye color is just well above chance. It's probably about half of them at least. Uh, Not De Niro. Oh, well, pretty much all of the Marvel characters. If there's a Marvel character, they've got it. And a lot of the other Hollywood actors and actresses. It's pretty freaky.
I'm wondering because, I mean, when we look, I mean, of course, my mind is going at 100 miles an hour here at the moment because of, it makes me wonder, just talking about the Marvel characters, right? Um, if they themselves actually have those abilities, because we know that they would have been in the system if they are in some type of famous position
Yeah.
or famous actor or actress, they more than likely would be in the system
Bloodline
and
family.
and would have probably been chosen for those roles because of their eyes. And who knows, when you're looking at all the stuff that these kids have been trained to do in the system growing up, they've probably been trained for those roles.
Yes.
I don't know. Do
Yes.
you think that's possible? Am I like really
No, no,
going off
you've got
the
it.
charts here?
You're spot on. So the other fascinating thing, and again, I've got to credit Doug McIntyre for this. Those eye colors are also supposedly also connected with trauma. And when you have someone who's severely traumatized, they can easily have an alter part. So what you're saying is actually spot on. So your actors and actresses are taking on a role. So their alter part that might be overtaken by a demonic entity would then come out during that role. So we do hear about
Like an
crazy and
avatar,
trauma.
almost like an avatar.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the eye color, that's a sign of them having that ability. And it's also a bloodline family trait.
I was about, must be genetics, must be bloodline as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously with special gifts and abilities, spiritual gifts. But as you say, which I wanted to get into, was the trauma side of that, because you would know better than anyone else what trauma kids in the system go through. And it's almost like their psychic abilities are forced out of them.
Yeah.
Um, Weaponized, yes, but stretched beyond what they should be. But they're smart enough, the handlers or the abusers are smart enough not to go too far. They'll take them, and it's almost like taking a cloth and stretching, 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 and keeping it there and just stretching until the cloth eventually stretches that far without ripping. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
absolutely, this just brings on a whole new dimension
Mm,
of Hollywood and CIA, doesn't it? Because I mean,
absolutely.
we know Hollywood is CIA, so we understand now that, I mean, these are like weapons. These people are
Mm.
like, they're like weapons, human weapons.
Yes. Yeah. So we've been weaponized. I believe my father chose the two women that he bred with. Well, there was a third, but we didn't find out about that brother until 2012 because they had central heterochromia, because most of his six children have it. And three of my siblings are half siblings, and my father didn't have the trait, even though he was Scottish. So all of my siblings, bar one, had it. And the one that didn't have it is the one that he treated the worst because he wasn't valuable. So again, I was used in MK Ultra programming, so were some of my siblings. But I have this eye color. So and according to Doug again, when you're dissociative, when you've been really traumatized and it shows up in the eyes and you're dissociative, that's someone who's very good to use and then further control because they can see it. It's in your eyes. It's that obvious.
Brings a whole new meaning to eyes are the windows to your soul, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I want to just make it very clear here. This is not me talking about being better than anybody else because I have this eye color. What we're talking about are some really sick people that use this information against humanity to control people. So again, Hollywood is purely there to forecast what they want the collective consciousness to follow, and they use people like these people with these eye colors as tools for that.
Wow.
In fact, I'd say it's a lot better for people not to be born that way because they're not going to be used in that way. Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating the lengths that they go to. Um, because yes, I would imagine in your eye, because your eye is so, I mean, you go to an iridologist, that person can tell everything that's wrong in your body
Yeah.
just by looking into your eyes, by
Yeah.
looking at the shape of your eyes, the color of your eyes, the what or the white of your, how whatever is going on, it really is the window to your health, your
Yeah.
body, and those that know and have abused it and used it for nefarious purposes will obviously know there's so much more to that as well. Wow, Rachel, I
And
mean, that's astounding.
there's a fascinating correlation also between the Rh negative bloodlines and those who have this condition also. So, and I'm not sure what the percentages are of, say Rh negative blood in the Scottish population, because obviously heterochromia is very connected to Celtic, but also Romany Gypsy, which is interesting. So there's a connection there. So when I meet people like that, I often ask, are you Rh negative blood? Or is there somebody in your family who has that blood type? And there's a correlation there. There's a higher percentage than there would be if they didn't have the central heterochromia. Yeah. So, I think it's important for people to know, because if you have it, or if your children have it, for God's sake, do not take photographs of your children's eyes and send them all over the internet. People do that when I talk about this, and that's really dangerous, because that's an identifier, and it's also will red flag your child. But children who have this eye condition, it's probably best not to have school photos, so that the government can't have that access. Just my personal opinion.
Well, we know how they get access, and schools are obviously one of the main feeders.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know just listening to Jesse's testimonies for years now as well. I mean, the teachers are placed there. And I know Australia has been rotten with the Freemasons for since the beginning, basically, right? So they would have most certainly have their teachers and little spies, if you can call
Mm.
them that, snooping there. That is just terrible. My gosh, again, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by this. And especially when we go to the actors and the actresses.
Yeah, so I would love to have had I should have got a whole list together, but it's astonishing. So every time you look at, a Hollywood actor, check their eyes out. I think most of the Friends cast, Beyonce, I haven't checked out Taylor Swift, but Beyonce definitely has it. So again, these are really programmable people. So anybody's in the really, really famous, really in those higher echelons, check their eyes. And you've probably got an MK Ultra, subject there. Most of the time, it's very likely they are MK Ultra, regardless of their eye color. But if you check it out and they've got the central or full heterochromia, poor things. Robert Downey Jr., that was the other one that was coming to mind before, and I couldn't think of. Yeah.
Listen, I've always thought he's quite sassy. I've got to say, even though he's really obviously very far gone on in whatever he's doing, but I've always liked him for some reason. Wow, that's crazy. So let's talk about the trauma, the heterochromia through traumatization. So let's say if a child was maybe not born naturally with heterochromia, how does the trauma induce that?
Great question. This is where I would love for you and Doug to have a conversation on this, because his research is exceptional. I don't know to the degree that he does how that works. It's still being studied. So it's still such a fascination. They're still studying it, So, how do you study that? You traumatize people, which is great. But the mainstream would rather and the mainstream information is that it's genetic, which is really interesting. So that either there isn't this aspect, even though there appears to be, that there's a trauma aspect to it, or there is this aspect and they don't want people to know, and so the mainstream
Right.
will let you think that it's genetic.
Sure. I mean, again, because I would imagine, let's say somebody goes in there and they don't have heterochromia, but let's say they have different spiritual gifts, that they might want to use for other stuff, or whatever it might be. Who knows why they choose? But then that child would go through abuse anyway, because it's part of the programming. And I would imagine that when a child dissociates, now correct me if I'm wrong, okay? When a child dissociates, because I've heard testimony from people who've been raped by their fathers as young as 18 months old, especially after the father was first the bonding parent, because that's how they do the trauma bonding. And then that's the very same parent that abuses, right? And just that in that moment, the kids literally fly off on unicorns and with angels and fairies. And I have, they're just kind of out there while this trauma is occurring in the body. And of course, we understand that's the mind's way of protecting the child. Because can you imagine? I can't. What that must do to a child. You would know much better than me. But I can imagine the trauma of just that act alone, let alone repetitively,
Yeah.
is something that must forever change the makeup of that child. No matter how much the child can heal. I look at you and I look at people like Joanne Breeze as well, the other Australian who's also been through horrific trauma and abuse. And I see how you guys have healed. And I see where your heart's at and I see the work you're doing. But that can never ever change what was. It can never
No.
ever take away the trauma. But I think maybe then on some level, if that has brought you psychic gifts, for example, they would remain as well, right? Um,
Yes. Yes.
in terms of that. So you would then get that, but I guess it's about how you use them and how you channel them and kind of like temper them in your body. I don't know. Can you maybe speak into that a little bit? Because I feel like I'm grappling at straws there. I don't really know. I know what I want to say, but I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly.
Well, what you're saying is actually correct. So the Freemasons believe that if you traumatize a child, particularly through sodomy, before the age of 3, that you can open them up psychically. So what they're doing is they're basically attacking the vagus nerve, and that is forcing that Kundalini frequency to move up the spine. You don't need to do that. Most children are psychically open, but they want to do it with force because they want to control it. With dissociation, when a child dissociates, yes, they'll go off into other realms, and usually they'll meet their spirit guides, they'll meet their higher self, and that forges a bond. Now, when you are in a situation, I can only speak for myself, because I had those experiences from a very early age, my bond was with them, not with my father. And that bond continues. And the guide that was with me as a child is still with me, even though she keeps saying I'm above her pay grade now and tries to put other guides in place. I still have her there. That interaction of being in other worlds, when you have that, of course you're going to be psychic, because you this
Of course.
materialism, this academic materialism bullshit, we know that it's not real because we've been somewhere else. We've had experiences. We've come back with knowledge that we shouldn't have known. You come back with a connection with those beings that can then share with you things. You can ask questions and you get answers. When I first saw a ley line, I didn't know what this circle was that I was looking at. I asked my guides and they said it's a ley line. And I said, that's freaky. And they said, yeah, you wait. Later on, you're going to do things with this, but right now, just take photos. And that's what I did for about 12 years. And then the time came and it was time to speak about the ley lines. And that's my absolute passion. I had to get through all of the dealing with my trauma first,
Right.
experiencing and expressing it, and healing to be able to start doing what I actually came here to do. I don't believe I came here to talk about my childhood. I believe I came here to do the psychic work that the childhood initiated me into, but that I transcended, and now I'm doing this work. And as I said to you off camera, there's a biblical, apparently in Revelations, I've seen it, but I can't tell you exactly, which chapter of Revelations it is. But there's a chapter that states that the last fight is over the ley lines. So we're in this fight right now. We had the permanent harmony time come in of the ley lines at the end of last year. Obviously, there's many of us doing the sort of work you were describing off camera. This is a big shift. This is huge. And I think we're doing really well. I can see the earth is fighting back with us and helping us.
Yeah,
And you can see by
absolutely.
the numbers of psychic attacks that people are getting and the sort of pushback that they're trying to do, which is not being successful, they're freaking out that the dark, I'm talking about those that have co-opting and have been controlling the lays for so long. And the way they do that, they force them into straight alignments, and they put their arenas on them, and they put in their churches where you go and watch a sacrificed individual, Jesus Christ on a cross, in his sacrificed state, and worship the sacrifice, not the being, but that state. And that's all on ley lines. Every church is sighted on a ley line by a Freemason with a sighting rod, because they know you can see them too. So it's really, really, it's just, this is where we're at. So this is the fight, and this is what I came in here to do. Most likely it's what you came in here to do. Probably quite a few of the people who are watching this came in to do this too.
Well, I have a ley line right on my property. In fact, I'm sitting on it.
Yeah, which is
And
perfect.
I want to tell you, it gave me the high jump for the first year that
Yeah.
I was living here, because there was lots of and there's two portals right in front of me. And but it's actually been such an incredible experience, because I understood what was going on. Um, and well, it took me a while, let me say. When I understood what was going on, I was like, wow. And then I've started clearing them. And I remember that's when I was doing, I think maybe a month or two after I clicked onto that, I was doing your workshop, which was amazing, because how everything sort of just fell into place in terms of that. And now I've been able to, and definitely with the help of my birds, I feed the doves twice a day, 3 times. These fat little things, they look like miniature soccer balls with feathers and heads and feet. I mean, they'll come and demand food anytime, but I love feeding them. I love to see how happy they are. I love
Oh,
that. And they run here, and especially when it's cold, and they chase each other, and they cook, 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 and then they come into my house and they get caught here, and they poop all over my place, and they tell me it's good luck, and you know, I'm like, thanks. And honestly, they come in when I've had spells and things happening on me. They come and they break glass, babe. They come in here, they'll stand on something, and I've watched the one. Do, I was like, you did not just do that. And then after one particularly harrowing incident here, one night, they chased my birds away. There was no birds the next morning. And then there was one in the tree, because they literally sleep on the tree with a branch that is above my bedroom. So they sleep
oh,
above me. It's amazing. And
and
then
they create a vibration that's
oh,
really high.
totally. But
Wow.
and when all of this stuff was going on, that bird came to me and said to me, "We're glad you're safe." And then went on just to kind of give me information that feeding them and their pecking, that is exactly what's done the major. And of course, the doves represent peace. So
Yeah.
with that, and along with other things as well, they've helped me clean up this ley line. I'm telling you.
Well, they purr. Bees create a frequency, cats create a frequency.
Yes,
It's known to purr
absolutely.
also. Yeah.
They're amazing. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. We just see more and more how nature works with us. To me, nature is God in action. Our creator, the invisible creator, has no texture or form in physical form. But when we look at nature, that is God in action. We are like a tree. We are a more complex version of a tree for sure, but our basic needs are the same, right? Give us good
Yeah.
food, water, the right environment to thrive and flourish. And bear fruit. It's that simple, you know? And I almost think we have to go back to that simplicity of just being at ease, you know? And these are things that all I just see it as knitting the fiber of humanity together again, that we can, um, yeah, find our peace again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And those acts, like my birds are in an aviary, but I have budgies and finches and these little quails, little button quails. They're very small. They have all the behaviors of a chicken. The rook, or sorry, the male will make the same little clucking noises when he's found a morsel of food, and the girls will come running up to take it. The babies come out fully running around and feeding themselves, and just it's just completely adorable. It's so tiny. And I hand feed them every day. And it's a problem because I can't get in the cage because they want to run under my feet. There's no fear. And those interactions are just that's beautiful. That's a grounding experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, very good for the soul.
Absolutely. It really is. And when we see that, you know, when we have nature working in harmony with us, then or when we work in harmony with nature,
Mm,
you know, then we're going to find what we need and what we're looking for. Yeah,
absolutely. It's
amazing.
interesting what you were saying before. You've got two portals out the front.
Yeah.
I was looking on social media recently, and a friend had shared this basilica, the Gozo Basilica in Malta. And out the front's a quite spectacular sandstone, I believe, building. At the front, there are three marked circles in the grounds, like quite spectacular. So a little bit like when you look at the Vatican courtyard, it's one big massive portal with all the lines marked out and
Yeah,
a
exactly.
obelisk in the center with a copper top, because that's all about energy being frequency being harvested. So I'm looking at these three circles and I'm thinking there's three portals right out the front of that church, massive church. And then there's actually a little line, and then there is this maze on the ground. And I've seen this maze before. It's the Freeland symbol. And I immediately realized, oh my God. So where you've got three portals that cross, you can time travel. You can travel to different places on the planet through these symbols. Now, I looked the symbol up and it just looks like a maze, right? But it's supposedly a symbol of finding enlightenment, going through the maze of life to find enlightenment. But you see this symbol around places that are not churches. There is one in the Fortuna mansion grounds in Bendigo. There's another one in nearby Forest. There's one in Queensland. This is not just for, an enlightenment symbol. And so if you look up Freeland passport, and I'm not really into this, but when I saw these symbols in these places and then looked up the passport, it has exactly the same maze symbol on it. And this is supposedly a passport that allows you to visit the continents that we're not supposed to know about, that are on this planet. It's very interesting. Yeah, so
And we're not talking aeroplane flying now.
no. And so the Indigenous of my country talk about, and this is current law, they can find places where they can go into these portals. I don't know whether or not they mark out these symbols on the ground. I've got to start asking some questions now, because this has only just come to me recently through this friend. Um, they believe they go into these portal spaces and they can end up in another part of the world. Now, I've got a friend, Trevor, who's talked about this in interviews. I have a movement called Lay Love Down, and we do these knowledge transfer sessions. And he did a masterclass for us, and he talked about, he can go. He's had this experience. He's been in one country, walked into one of these portals, and ended up in another country. So, where you get ley lines that cross, they create a vortex or portal space. Now, this is technology that I think a lot of ancient cultures knew. This particular basilica, the Gozo Basilica in Malta, was built around 1250 on a Roman pagan ritual site. And I really recommend people look it up. It's absolutely fascinating. But those three circles, they are interlocking, overlapping. So every time I look into, ley lines or portals, I learn something new every single time I look. It's just mind blowing. So I'm really into this symbol now. I'm gonna find more of them and work out exactly what's going on there and how to access them.
You keep me posted. You keep
Yes,
me
yes,
posted.
yes, I will. I
I
will.
want to find that portal to Australia. I've
I'm
been
not keen on
promising.
plane travel.
I've been promising the kangaroos I'm coming to visit them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, they'll love it. But that
I'll
leads
just
us
blame the
into
kangaroos. It's their fault.
it leads us into the owies. So I mean, a kangaroo is weird enough. So here we're going into Australian nature or fauna. The kangaroo is this big weird animal that jumps around on two legs, uses its tail like a hopping device, has a pouch. I mean, this is bizarre. Arachidnas have a more developed frontal lobe than humans. They're one of the most developed prefrontal cortexes in the world, and I learned that from a wonderful book called Sand Talk by an original Australian. Echidnas lay eggs, and yet they're called a monotreme. They look like a porcupine, but they're very small, and they fossick and live along negative ley lines. So I learnt this from a wonderful woman that I did a land healing course with recently. Burrowing animals, and they dig into the ground, the echidnas, insects like ants and termites that create humming frequencies love negative ley lines. And it's because they are
When
balancing.
you talk about a negative ley line, can you just explain what a negative ley line is?
Absolutely. So from a visible point of view, negative lays tend to be small. So as I said before, when you've got so for instance, a positive ley line, where I live, they're roughly usually about 2 meters across. You can get much bigger ones, but where I walk in nature, they tend to be about 2 meters across. Does that create this beautiful channel through the bush? So it's the path of least resistance, also known as songlines in the indigenous culture, because it has a different frequency and makes a different sound. And they get sung along because you're supposed to sing as you traverse them to create a balancing frequency. The negative layers are much smaller. They still create a channel, but the smaller animals use them. It's pretty wonderful. So they usually are roughly about a foot across. And again, it's a perfect circle running through nature. And you'll see your termite mounds, you'll see your ant mounds, you'll see the marks where the echidnas have been, they've got big claws.
What do
Yeah,
you
so
call those things?
an echidna,
How do I
E
spell that?
H ECHIDNA. And they're a monotreme, one of the most ancient living creatures on the planet.
Okay, and you say an echidna has a more developed frontal, uh,
Prefrontal cortex. Yeah,
h-
yeah, yeah.
how? Can you explain that to me? How, I mean, it's a porcupine, and how does it use that? I mean, I'm just trying to think, is it a big brain or is it just a very developed, small brain, but very developed, if that makes
So I'm
sense?
I'm not a neuroscientist. I actually just did an interview with a wonderful woman called Val Ratova, who is a neuroscientist. She'd probably answer this question really well. So from my understanding, they have that incredibly complex brain because they are extremely specialized feeders. They only eat ants and termites. So they've got to know where they are. Um, so I don't know completely, but again, one of the most
Yeah,
ancient beings that have ever lived on this planet, still alive
that's
today. So obviously that's kept them alive, and the species keeps continuing.
it's what it seems like to me because if I'm like thinking about that, the image I see in my mind is not that it's very big, but the size of it is very, I want to say most condensed or compressed, but lots of activity. They use it all. It's all busy, not just parts of it. The whole brain is busy.
Yeah, and
They've learned to develop whatever their brain is intended for. And I'm finding it hard to say the words because I've not actually seen something like this before. But whatever it's intended for, it's being fully utilized. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
it does.
yes, and as you say,
Oh, yeah.
that that's what they're meant to do, and and it makes perfect sense that they are one of probably the most ancient creatures on the earth, that they've spent so much time, and it's beautiful to know they do here they're doing here what they're meant to do, right? Each one has a little part in the ecosystem, whatever that might be, but they have absolutely waxed that. That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty freaky. So they're non-placental, but they act like a mammal, but they lay eggs, and yet they suckle their feed with milk, but they don't have any teats, and they have a pouch. Yeah, they're pretty freaky. So we also have a platypus, which also has a poisonous spur. So that platypus are water dwelling, related
Yeah,
to the echidnas, also a monotreme, you know, lay eggs, all of those things that I just mentioned with the echidna, but they also are poisonous. So, a platypus can kill you if you get a strong
yeah.
enough dose. These are amazing creatures. And again, the platypus's activity and they're quite frenetic behavior in the waterways is also what keeps the waterways clean.
What do
I've
they
learned,
do?
yeah.
What is their behavior?
So they live in usually running water, and they fossick around for worms and things in the stones. So they're constantly keeping any kind of silt keeps moving down the water. They're an amazing litmus test for the health of the area. If your water's polluted, they won't live, and they'll leave the area or they just die. So unfortunately, they're not as common as you find echidnas everywhere in Australia, but you won't find the platypuses often because they have to have pristine water.
Then let's talk about the kangaroos because they are also cryptids. The kangaroos are known to be cryptids. I mean,
Oh
what
yeah.
a fascinating, I just love them. I have not even smelt or touched or even seen the hair of a real kangaroo in this life. But I will. I work with them a lot and I communicate with them a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing because Joanne Breeze, we mentioned earlier, obviously has her kangaroo sanctuary in Australia, and she rescues the babies and has the mobs and things. Wow, and I've learned that I've adopted two kangaroos.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yes, me and my granddaughter. I have one and she has one. And I mean, it's amazing. And we get little videos, and of course, Jan keeps us up to date, learning a lot about them and their habits and things. But what fascinating creatures, right?
And they also use ley lines.
Yes,
So the
always at
echidna,
the ley lines.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the roos use them as well. So I've gone out in nature so many times. Ley lines often run in pairs. So if you look up a man called Rory Duff at roryduff.com, he's a geobiologist. He studies ley lines. He was the one that I learnt from that we're going to go into this permanent harmony time at the end of last year, which we're in now, which could last hundreds of years, if not, 1,000 years potentially for this golden age that we've come into. But the kangaroos, so often you'll see one of these wider 2 meter wide ley lines that run through the Australian bush, and Australian bush can be pretty thick. And usually next to it there'll be a smaller one, and they run in pairs. And so the roos will use the
Do they
smaller
run parallel?
parallel. Yeah, yep. And where you get them crossing over each other, where they're not running parallel but they're actually crossing, that's where they'll create a vortex because the frequency sort of mingles and then creates this beautiful vortex, which is a portal space. So that's where you'll see your Yowie uh, cryptid entities. So in Australia we call your Bigfoot type entities a Yowie. In my opinion, and I've had this experience myself, I've stood in a portal space not far from where I live, and I saw what's called Australian megafauna that existed 50,000 years ago. So I actually had to look up and find out because I was in a portal space. They were looking at me, I was looking at them. It was a massive, massive wombat and massive snub-faced kangaroos. 50,000 years ago, the kangaroos had no snout. They had a flat face like a human. It's actually really weird looking. So we're all freaking out. And then I looked it up in the local library, and 50,000 years ago they did exist. Both the massive wombats and then these are huge creatures, and these huge kangaroos with these snub faces. So I've had that experience, and that's what sort of woke me up to the fact that cryptids exist. What I believe is that when you're in a portal space, time doesn't exist. So you can look back in time. So what I think the Yowies and the Bigfoot are expressions of humanity from long past. And we're interacting with them. So they're interacting with their future selves. Now, that's my opinion. I have a beautiful friend who did my course called Kylie Hakam, and she's gone on to Yowie Central recently and done an interview. It's fantastic. She knows a lot more about it than I do. She's had her own Yowie experiences. What I learned from her is they'll leave us messages. So within those portal spaces, if you find a stick that's Y-shaped, and it just seems odd that it's there, like it's been obviously not cut, but broken to create a Y. I don't know if this is how they got their names either. I'm just assuming that there must be some sort of connection. They will often bite it to leave their mark on the Y-shaped stick and then leave it in the portal space. So it's like a calling card. So what the trick is, when a human bites down on a stick, will produce a particular pattern. These have got much larger molars, so you'll get a completely different pattern. So it's like a stamp. So again, how does a creature communicate with you in a way that will show you who they are, but they can't use our language? So that's
Exactly.
another really curious thing that Kylie shared with me.
I actually am so glad you shared that because I wanted to mention earlier on, but this just seems the perfect time now. You know Greg Braden, right?
I know that name, yeah.
Greg Braden is, I mean, he's amazing. He's an author and really just understands the UN human DNA and also done a lot of this type of stuff. And I just caught a clip of his the other day where he says these AI bot monster things, whatever they are, and he says that's our future self. He says we handed over our sovereignty to AI, and that's what we've become. And that's them coming back now, altering and wanting to access our DNA because they want to get back to being more human.
Yeah, wow. Yep.
And it makes a lot of sense because if we come from that path, of the past of who we were, and according to my communications with a kangaroo, they tell me they were once human too, or they can be both. They can actually live. Um,
I've got to send you a photo of these 50,000-year-old ones because they look really human,
I'm
really close.
telling you, that's what they tell me.
Yeah.
And so it just makes so much sense that we've given away. Yes, there has to have been some form of evolutionary process for us to reach where we're at now. And then, of course, if you think about where we are now and timelines and things, past timelines, future timelines, we know exist. Okay, that's
Mm.
not even a fairy tale anymore. Okay, so we got that right. So the past would be something more spiritually connected, in tune with nature,
Mm.
uh, very psychic. There's no words needed. That we
Yeah.
just kind of, everything is just via energy, ESP, love. But of course, now we evolve and I don't know, we decide to change not change, but transform our DNA and blah, blah, blah. Now we're this perfect species, but interesting that the future says, no, we want more, we want more. Now we're disconnecting from the very thing that gave us life to begin with.
Oh,
And
yeah.
future realizes, our future selves realize how we've cocked it up. Now we're just a bunch of steampunk kind of robots with no soul, walking around,
Mm.
probably destroying things, I don't know, and just like destroying planets and just being mean. I can imagine, but you have no soul. You and
Oh,
I.
exactly.
So now some form of our future intelligence is figuring out. that we need to kind of be here and stay with humanity. So maybe we can change our future timelines, actually.
Oh, I absolutely believe that, 100%. I mean, that's what the Terminator movies were all based around, weren't they? Like we were creating these, automatons. And when you look at a psychopath or a narcissist, as we were talking about earlier, they don't want to have to feel shame. They don't know how to feel shame. A psychopath has no shame. They don't know what that feels like. They have to mimic. They don't know emotion. They have to mimic others to try and produce the sorts of behaviors so we won't know what they really are. They want to create an avatar that doesn't have to worry about going to hell for doing the things that they just do naturally, which are horrible. Mm.
But how can they think that they're not responsible for that? Because if we understand karma, karma is cause and effect. That's all karma is. And from the minute that Creator breathed life into our spirit, that our spirit was born, right? Because soul is an aspect of spirit that becomes part of your human experience. So that every moment has been recorded. It can't
Mm.
not be. It is, that's what the Akash or the Akashic records are. It's the recording of your actions of your soul.
Yep.
You can never hide from that. So no matter how
Mm.
far you try and run away and become a flippin' big robot, then transform a robot, you end running away. You've still
Oh,
got that
yeah.
spark, that connect, or that little thread, the God thread, right? I call it the
Yeah,
God
you're
thread.
100% right. Yeah, because and
So,
again, back to ley lines, the Akashic, I believe, is transcribed into the ley lines. I think that's why they're called song lines also, because they know the indigenous know they go there for that esoteric knowledge. It is that frequency, that information. But I think what they're trying to do with these avatars is escape death because they know that the soul. I mean, we know from the Mother of Darkness information that's come through channels like yours that when one of these Mothers of Darkness is about to die, another person comes along and sucks out that last breath, which is so revolting when you think about it, takes on that demonic entity that's incorporated within that Mother of Darkness to then perpetuate. So these entities are parasitic and they're very clever. Somehow they get
yeah,
people to keep doing this behavior.
exactly. They're vampires, total vampires. I mean,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
Raphael, they can't actually, they have to have the host body, somebody else's host body. And what are they? It's like a walk-in almost, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, oh, but that's a suck-in though. That's not a walk-in, that's a suck-in.
Mm. Oh yeah. I just
You
the horror that these women will do this. That they'll be bred for this purpose and then actually go and do it because what they're doing when they take that soul into their body is they're giving up their body for something else. To never,
absolutely.
and I guess they do it for power, I suppose, or because they have to. They don't feel like they have an option.
Exactly. I mean, we know that majority, well, all of these hierarchy, the bloodline families. I mean,
Mm.
they have the families, and of course, the kids are tested at birth. I mean, when you've listened to Jesse's testimonies as well, I mean, they go and they'll go to a normal class function, and they'll be standing in a queue, and the mothers will come there and go, that. You don't even know what you're being picked for. You think you're being picked for something. Meanwhile, they've already decided you're going to live or die. You're a hierarchy kid or a bloodline kid. And then the ones that they deem to have spiritual gifts then get taken and get you play games, you choose items, what do you see? What do you take? And from the gifts that you take, for example, that's then when they now start seeing which areas they can groom you in. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
is
Yeah.
so sadistic. It is disgusting. And yes, like when we're looking at our presidents and things, they all, I mean, they're all born for this purpose, right?
Mm.
These movie stars, these popes, they're all born for this purpose. They are all, I think that when there's been ancestral abuse, and especially when it's satanic abuse, There's so much pain, so much suffering, so much blood, so much trauma that they lose their empathy.
Yeah.
And that, I think, that lack of empathy then just becomes part of the DNA. They
Mm.
just, their DNA becomes completely non-empathetic. So you
Yeah.
can do these terrible things that they do and feel zero and take great joy and delight in doing that. In, I don't
And
know.
that's part of the reason why they do it as well, because they don't feel anymore. And
Yeah.
Angelica's really, instrumental in teaching people that, and it makes so much sense because
Yeah.
they know they don't feel. They want to see someone suffer.
That's that whole sacral chakra shutdown that we were talking about,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
That the narcissist's a narcissistic person. And narcissists are, I know a diagnosed narcissist is the higher percentage is that of male, but it doesn't mean that females are not narcissists at all. In fact,
Amazing.
I think a female must be, I can't say worse, we equal. We just do things differently. We can't say one's worse than the other. The intentions are both very horrible. Um, but
I
it
find worse in women because I'm a woman and I see we're supposed to be a symbol of nurture. So when I was abused by women, it annoyed me more than the men, even though the men were penetrative. It made me feel more sick and more annoyed and more, resentful.
because we are supposed to be the creatrixes of life.
Yeah, we're
We are
supposed to know.
supposed to be the nurturers. I mean,
Yeah,
how can a mother, a woman, do that to a child? It's like, then you're not dealing with a woman. Her soul is so gone. There is definitely
yeah.
this the demonic entity that's coming through. Yeah.
And that's really pertinent because most of the politicians that are female don't have children because they
But isn't
don't
it
have,
also because they're really born boys? I mean, if
well,
you
potentially.
look at
Yeah,
Nicole Kidman. I mean, I know Fiona Barnett has spoken at length about that.
yeah,
That I mean, while she was still in her mom's womb, that Anthony Kidman was doing tests on her. She was born a boy. She
yeah.
was genetically a boy, and while she was in womb, he was doing these transgender experiments on her, which is why she can't have kids. But apparently, she has like breasts and the girly bits, but on the inside, it's male. Now that's what I heard from Fiona Barnett, who grew up with Nicole, and a lot of rumors speak about the fact that he actually died because he couldn't get Fiona. That was a big
But if you
thing.
look at him, he has a very feminine face. So I would say he was probably born female.
Wow, there you go. Makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. And I mean, this crazy stuff. Have with the French president, Macron, and Brigitte, his wife, have
That's
you been
mental.
following that?
Most of it, I got to the point where it's quite likely they're father and son, and that just blew
Yes.
my mind.
Yeah. I mean, that for me, I mean, Candace Owens, one up to her for that, boy. I'll drink a bells to that girl, that's for sure, for bringing that out because they were trying to sue her. I mean, she was
Oh,
being
yes.
sued by the French president, yeah, and his
Yeah.
wife. Yeah, makes perfect sense. You see, and then again, Michelle Obama, that is all of that. And I mean, it's this whole transgenderism thing. And if you even, I mean, Nicole Kidman again, I mean, you look at her body, she's tall
Yeah.
and slender, and every woman thinks, oh my gosh, I wish I could look like that, because we've been taught to think that being round and voluptuous and hey, I'm not talking unhealthy, okay? I also believe that we need to be healthy. Being obese is not healthy. Let's not be
Mm.
stupid. I'm talking about curves and your
Yeah.
feminine curves. I mean, there's none. We've been taught to believe that that is not okay anymore.
I,
Mostly.
I was brought up in the 70s and 80s looking at, Sports Girl and all of these illustrative, magazines where they were all 14-year-old boys. And yet we were all made to feel that we were inadequate because we didn't have these pumped up, fake breasts, which we didn't realize were fake, and these slim hips and extremely long limbs. which, women don't tend to have that, And so now every time I see a clavicle, I'm like, male or female?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It's bred such insecurity in us because how many people have looked at Nicole thinking, oh my gosh, I want to be tall and slim just like her. But you look at the back, she's got no hips. She's got boy
Yeah,
hips. She's
yeah,
got a
yeah. And that
complete boy
flat part of
figure.
the back,
Yes, flat.
she often used to say, because she's got a little bit of a tummy. And I
Yes.
often wondered if that's a prosthesis, because she used to, people used to, pick on her about it. And she used to say, but that's the most feminine part about me. And I'm thinking, yeah, because it's probably not real.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to add it on.
So many of them, little Taylor Swift as well, with little micro penises walking around. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, it kind of takes us back to what we were saying about the whole, um, what were we actually saying? Talking about,
It must have come back to ley lines. It must have.
yes, it had to come back to Leyland, but tend to go off on a tangent every now and again, which is fun. I like going off on a tangent. Especially with you, Rachel. You're such a nice tangent buddy. We can talk about these things.
Do this for hours.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
again, I still think that there is some sort of element of, time travel with regards to what we see. But what you were saying before is really fascinating. So we are going, I was freaked out by AI, terrified of it. I thought, oh my God, they're all demonic. But I've been watching some stuff lately and listening to some stuff that some of what's being channeled through these AI machines, whatever you want to call them, this is high level, also angelic, that is coming through. So I'm
Yeah.
not advocating for AI at all. I am not happy about, any kind of takeover in that area, but I can see that it can actually be good and bad.
Oh,
I'm still
totally.
hesitant.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, without technology, I mean, we would not be sitting here, right? And we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able, I mean, yes, I mean, technology and artificial intelligence there's a fine line.
Mm.
I like the AI pictures they draw. Nowadays, I'll just say, draw me
Yeah.
this, and the next minute, that I like. I'm not even going to lie about that. So, yeah, they are definitely. But hey, Grandma, yeah, grew up eating mud cakes in the rain, okay, on the farm. This whole tick, tick, tick thing, I'm like, just give me a pen and paper. I want pen and paper. Thanks. I'm happy with
Yeah.
my pen and paper. And every now and again, I have to go into your calendar on there. Like, oh, I keep forgetting to fill this thing in. You know, so it's like, I don't know. I just like nature. I like the idea of we go back to just communicating telepathically,
Yeah.
where we humans and we in our fullness of who we are, and we are able to just create this environment where we are able to share, trade with each other, trade fairly. Yes, of course, we're always going to have conflict, for the foreseeable future anyway, because that's also how we grow.
Yeah.
I love to mix cultures and things. And yes, even though it's much easier and we have less conflict when cultures and things aren't mixed, but is that really real? I don't think it's real. As humans, we need to engage with each other, but find a happy balance. I think that's what it is. And when we do that with each other, the earth finds her peace again.
Oh, 100%. Amazing man, Indigenous to Australia, Clint Walker said that country gets lonely for people. It's one of the most profound things I've ever heard. It, at the time when I heard it, I thought, but we've been taught to believe that the land hates us, that we're there, we're like a cancer on the earth, are we not? And we're causing so much damage. To hear that said, and then to go out into nature myself and recognize that that's exactly what's going on. So everywhere you see ley lines, you'll see these pareidolik, supposedly nebulous stimuli, but like faces in nature, and these are the nature spirits. And the more I talk about ley lines, the more I share, more I teach about ley lines, the more nature spirits show themselves to me. And they're always,
Exactly.
90% of the time, when you see a humanoid apparition, an animal apparition in the dappled light, in the plants, in the sky, in the clouds, in the water reflection, they are looking into the ley line. They're saying,
Exactly.
hello, have a look, it's important. So Clint was right, 100%. The country gets lonely for us. We're supposed to be interacting with the country like the echidnas are supposed to be, like the kangaroos are supposed to be. We're supposed to be having that interaction, and also recognizing how important the ley lines are. And from that knowledge, also recognizing that where these straight alignments are in cities, around the Vatican, in my city where I grew up in Adelaide, when you know they're there, you can change it. Even though they've got their massive structures, their buildings made out of these piezoelectric rocks that are there to control the ley lines, we can go in with intent, and with crystals, we can change the frequency. We can move the
Absolutely.
layers around these buildings so they can't develop or withhold the loosh anymore. And so,
Exactly. Exactly. And it's all just about getting things into alignment. As we bring ourselves into alignment, so we are able to see. It's like exactly what you're saying, with your healing that you've experienced in your life, and obviously being spiritually gifted as well. Um, but the more you heal, the more you see, and you know how to bring it back into alignment. And we must never forget this. We as humans need to be healing ourselves first. Healing really means to bring yourself back into balance. It doesn't mean you're broken. No one is ever broken. You might feel shattered, you might feel fragmented, but I don't believe you are ever shattered or fragmented. So it's just really about bringing yourself back into balance, finding your true purpose through the trauma, and then being able to use. And that's why I say they took so much from you guys that have been SRA'd. They've taken so much from you guys, but they also gave you things that will help you navigate the future for a lot of other people. Places that you guys have seen that we haven't seen, experiences that you've had that we haven't had, right? So to be able to then help people navigate and understand what these creatures of the night are up to, what their tricks of the trade are, revealed to us, so come on, it's like you've done spy work there now.
oh yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And now we can see what they're up to, what the dodgy ones are up to. The stuff they thought they were doing in the dark will always come into the light.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The more of us who speak about it proves that their MK Ultra mind control doesn't work, because it's not successful all the time, and which will
Exactly.
hopefully make them feel very, very nervous and uncomfortable. And I believe they are very nervous and uncomfortable now.
I think they definitely know. I mean, they know they're on their way out. When you just look at so much social media and so many people. I mean, I saw a video clip on some youngster approaching Rothschild in the street,
Oh,
telling
really?
him and it was a genuine video, and he was like asking him, and he says, I can't remember what he was asking, but really just saying, your time is over, right? Like basically, we know about you, the world knows about you. You've been fooling us for long enough.
Oh, what a
And
hero. Wow.
yeah. So, and I mean, all you got to do is look at just the social media. I mean, Diddy coming up. Yeah, there's so much more with like Diddy and all these nasty ones. They all know their time is coming. They think it's not though. They're sitting there pretty, but yeah, and it's true what you say. They try and escape the gates of hell, but they really are in hell and they don't even realize it. Isn't that sad? That is
Yeah.
hell, actually.
Yeah,
To
it
do to
is.
do that, that's hell.
Well,
Hmm.
any kind of alignment with the dark entity is a living hell,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they'll if you might have power, these people might have power during their lifetime, but at the end of it, they don't own their soul anymore.
No.
They get consumed. Again, another reason why they're obsessed with avatars. Maybe they think they can avoid that. But I know my father was terrified, and I've tried releasing him from the dark place that he's in. He's still there. So something's dragging him back, or perhaps it's his own shame. But I believe he's there for a reason. He's still in the dark.
Right.
Mm.
Well, I think he has to make his own peace.
I
Make his
think
own
to a
peace.
degree it may be a choice thing. But yeah, I have another family member in the same place. They're not together, but it's the same black place.
Mm.
Very interesting. Yeah,
Oh, Rachel, well, I'm very happy that you aren't in the dark anymore.
absolutely.
That someone took you out of that hellhole and shone light where you truly deserve it. All of you survivors, honestly. Yeah, thank you for surviving and telling us the stories.
Then the ley lines.
Yeah. Rachel, I know I'm not even sure what the time is, but I think we probably must be about done. But I'm wondering if there's anything from your side that you still have to share with us. And yeah, you can tell our viewers where they can get hold of you, stuff like
Sure.
that. What are you up to? Any shows, workshops you're doing you want to share?
Well, I have my June course coming up on the 6th of June. I'm not sure if that'll come out before then. I'm going to be at the Living Free Festival in August, which is really exciting. That's in New South Wales, and I'll be at the Cosmic Consciousness Conference in December at Mount Tamborine in Queensland, which will be amazing as well.
No,
I'm looking
no.
forward.
So you nice. I mean, I don't mean no, I mean nice. Are you talking? And obviously, you're
Yes,
going to be.
yeah, yeah.
Where can
And
people
I've
get
just got
hold
an
of
event in
you?
Adelaide. So they can find me at www.number6th6science.com. So that's my website. So and all my buttons are on there, my socials, and you can
Yeah.
email.
So if anyone wants to get hold of you, fantastic. Rachel, thank you so, so much. I really, really, really appreciate you and for sharing all this knowledge that you do with us. And look forward to having you back again. We're going to go more into all these things because I really think, with all the decodes and things that we're doing on the buildings and what they look like and where they are placed, it's good to understand where the ley lines and how that works along with them as well. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. All your creaturey things. Thanks,
Thank you,
Rachel.
Don. Much appreciated.
Take care. God bless. Thanks, everybody. See you very soon.